They won't even give me a permit for the parties, man. They don't want me to throw the parties no more. But we ain't gonna stop. We gonna keep on having fun, bringing people together from all walks of life. You gonna hear about my parties. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me.
What happens when the glittering world of fame hides the darkest secrets? Justin Bieber's mentor, Shaun Diddy Combmes, is at the center of a courtroom drama that's shaking the music industry to its core. What really went on behind the scenes? Let's uncover the untold story. Unexpected court revelations and Bieber's surprising statement. Day 5 of the Shaun Diddy Combmes trial took a dramatic twist, not inside the courtroom, but online. Minutes before proceedings began, Justin Bieber, once mentored by Diddy, broke his silence with a shocking post that validated disturbing rumors and dark footage long hidden by the industry. This unexpected move changed everything. Bieber's message didn't just support Cassie's testimony, it brought a flood of attention to whispers and footage that had been buried for years. The video of a young Bieber awkwardly standing by Diddy and the jokes about custody suddenly took on a new, sinister meaning. Bieber's post sent shockwaves that rippled through the courtroom and beyond. Reporters rushed to capture the moment, while courtroom staff scrambled to manage the fallout. Diddy, known for his usual calm and control, lost composure when he saw Bieber's message. Security had to step in as he visibly cracked under the pressure. The atmosphere shifted from tense to electric, with whispers spreading quickly and jurors visibly moved by the revelation. This was no longer just a trial. It was becoming a cultural reckoning. Bieber's words broke through the noise, turning a high-profile celeb courtroom fight into a public spotlight on long-suppressed truths, and changing the tone of everything about the case. The power dynamics behind fame, mentorship, and control were suddenly center stage, and Bieber's courageous decision to speak up was the catalyst. Justin Bieber's early rise and Diddy's mentorship. Back in 2009, Justin Bieber was the poster child of innocence, just a teenager quickly rising to global superstardom. Behind the scenes, though, his path was heavily influenced by powerful figures like Diddy. More than a mentor, Diddy introduced Bieber to a world far beyond his years, parties, industry elites, and pressures that no teen should face. Diddy didn't just meet Bieber. He took him under his wing, showed him the ropes, brought him to exclusive parties, and declared himself a mentor. In one now infamous clip, Diddy even joked during an interview that he had custody of Justin for 48 hours. At the time, it was laughed off as humor, but looking back, it planted a seed of discomfort that would grow over the years. Videos from that era show Bieber, wide-eyed and a little awkward, standing beside Diddy as cameras flashed. Diddy often spoke for him, cracked inappropriate jokes, and guided the young teen through situations that in hindsight felt too adult too soon. This relationship appeared beneficial on the surface, but it came with strings, and sometimes chains. Bieber's early association with Diddy, once considered a badge of honor, is now being reconsidered as something far more troubling. Justin's fast-tracked rise was shaped by people much older and more experienced, in shadows lurking in the industry. Diddy was one of those shadows, powerful and influential, with open doors and endless charm that made it happen. The power imbalance wasn't just about age. It was about access. Diddy could get Bieber into any room, introduce him to any star, and shape how the world viewed him. In return, Bieber was expected to smile, show loyalty, and absorb the rules of this darker side of stardom. It was a relationship that exposed him to temptations, blurred boundaries, and unchecked power no child should face. The unsettling footage and power dynamics. One now infamous video surfaced, showing a young Bieber awkwardly beside Diddy, who joked he had custody of him for 48 hours. Once seen as playful, this clip now speaks volumes about the troubling control and power imbalances Bieber faced. It paints a chilling picture of a child thrown too soon into an adult world. Diddy speaks with ownership, while Bieber looks out of place. The audience laughed when it was aired years ago. Now those same laughs sound hollow. The tone of the clip is unsettling. Diddy says, "I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me." He pats Bieber on the back, and Bieber awkwardly smiles and nods. At the time, it seemed like a quirky soundbite. Now it reads like a red flag that was ignored. The clip is short, just minutes, but the tone reveals much more. Bieber appears uncomfortable, overshadowed by Diddy's confident control. This moment shows the troubling power dynamic between the industry mogul and the young star. Bieber was not just a protege. He was in a vulnerable position, exposed to pressures beyond his years. The video spread like wildfire across social media, with viewers noting Bieber's discomfort and questioning the normalcy of the situation. Context is crucial, especially considering later allegations facing Diddy. What once seemed like innocent celebrity mentorship now feels like a disturbing imbalance of power that was celebrated publicly. For Bieber, this footage and what it represents became a deeply unsettling memory, highlighting the darker side of fame and control in the entertainment industry. Bieber's struggles and the fallout from fame. As Bieber's fame soared, so did his exposure to dark industry forces. Addictions, erratic behavior, and public breakdowns ensued. While Scooter Braun and Usher managed his career publicly, Diddy was the shadow shaping much of Bieber's experiences, often pushing boundaries that led to lasting emotional scars. The pressure of sudden stardom hit hard for a teenager barely out of middle school. Thrust into an adult world filled with temptations and blurred moral lines, Bieber struggled to keep control. His behavior spiraled out of control, with arrests and clashes with paparazzi becoming public spectacles. Fans watched as the young star seemed to fall apart in real time. It wasn't just fame that challenged Bieber, it was the environment he was placed in. A world where loyalty was expected but safety was not guaranteed, one where manipulations went unchecked, and innocence was lost too soon. Years later, Bieber openly admitted that the fame nearly cost him his life, saying, "I would have been dead by now if I kept going." His breakdown marked a critical low point, but it also became a turning point toward healing. His marriage to model Hailey Baldwin and growing Christian faith helped him start the slow rebuild. He distanced himself from toxic industry ties, avoiding clubs and late-night parties that once dominated his life. His music turned introspective, hinting at the emotional scars that fans felt but couldn't name. Songs like Lonely and Ghost are windows into the pain beneath the fame. Bieber's story remains a powerful reminder that stardom isn't always the dream it seems. It's often a battlefield where the young and vulnerable fight to survive, and sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom before healing can begin. The critical courtroom meltdown and Diddy's outburst. When Bieber's social media post reached the courtroom, Diddy visibly cracked, losing control and shouting accusations. Security intervened, and the tense atmosphere revealed the distant man behind the mogul image. This breakdown marked a turning point, shaking the case and the audience's perception. Diddy sat motionless at first, his leg bouncing, his hand gripping the table edge. As the prosecution prepped to bring Cassie back to the stand, Diddy's lawyer tried to redirect his attention, handing him a notepad, pointing to exhibits, but none of it worked. He'd already seen the post, and something inside him had shifted. Observers said his breathing became visibly heavier. He ran his hand through his hair, loosened his tie, and whispered to his lawyer. Then, without warning, his hand slammed down on the table, knocking over a water glass. It shattered. Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge immediately banged her gavel. "Mr. Combs, control yourself," she warned. But Diddy stood up. "You know this is all lies," he shouted, pointing at Cassie. "You know damn well that's not what happened." "And him," he said, gesturing at the evidence screen. "After everything I did for him." Security moved in. His lawyer physically tried to pull him back down. Diddy shoved him away. One of the guards unclipped something on his belt. The judge stood up herself. "Remove the jury," she ordered. Cassie never flinched. As the jury was escorted out, Diddy kept yelling, "You're making this up. Loyalty means nothing anymore." And then the words that froze the room. "I'll make sure he never works in this town again. Neither of them will." He was talking about Bieber out loud, in court, in front of reporters. That moment shattered everything. Diddy had just threatened a global superstar in open court. His lawyer put his head in his hands. The prosecutor stared at him like she couldn't believe what she just heard. The judge wasn't done. She stood behind the bench and delivered the coldest line of the day. "Mr. Combs, you don't control what happens in this courtroom. One more outburst, and I will have you removed and held in contempt." Security didn't leave his side after that. One guard stationed directly behind him. Another posted at the door. He didn't speak again, but he didn't need to, because the image he had spent decades building, mogul, mentor, man in charge, had crumbled in real time. For the first time, the jury wasn't just looking at a powerful figure being accused. They were looking at a man unraveling in front of them. Cassie's testimony and the evidence of control. Cassie Ventura, also involved in the case, confirmed Bieber's presence in a controlling and fearful environment dictated by Diddy. Text exchanges revealed monitoring and threats that kept victims silent. Cassie's calm but powerful testimony linked the disturbing patterns, exposing how deep the manipulation ran. She explained that Diddy kept a list of men she wasn't allowed to talk to unless he was present. Justin Bieber was on that list. She recalled, "Don't smile too long. Don't talk unless I'm nearby. And if I did, there would be consequences later." These words painted a chilling picture of control and fear, a stark contrast to the glamorous facade often shown to the world. The prosecution introduced text messages from 2017, years before any lawsuits, revealing a troubling dynamic between Cassie and Bieber. "Cassie, I don't know what to do anymore. He monitors everything," one message read. "Bieber, that's not normal. You need to talk to someone. This isn't okay." The courtroom reacted visibly, with jurors stunned and a woman wiping tears from under her glasses. These messages not only supported Cassie's claims, but proved she had confided in someone years ago, showing this wasn't a last-minute fabrication or motivated by a civil payout. Instead, it was a genuine cry for help. When asked why she hadn't brought the messages forward earlier, Cassie answered, "Because he told me no one would believe me, and I believed him." This heartbreaking admission underscored the power of fear and manipulation within the entertainment industry. She described a specific moment at a music industry party where Diddy whispered to her, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." That quote hit the courtroom like a thunderclap. Cassie stared straight ahead as she repeated it. "That was the first time I was truly afraid for Justin and for myself." Her testimony connected the dots, revealing a toxic cycle of control, intimidation, and silence that had held sway for years. The courtroom fell silent, understanding the weight of her words and the devastating reality behind the glitz and glamour. Industry fallout and the breaking of silence. Following Bieber's brave statement and courtroom drama, the entertainment world erupted. Artists and insiders began speaking out, endorsements were pulled, and the once untouchable empire started to crumble. Bieber's break from silence ignited a wave that challenged the culture of silence, protecting the powerful. Former assistants, backup dancers, label interns, and people who had spent years under Diddy's empire began contacting Cassie's lawyers. Not all wanted to testify, but many were willing to submit sworn affidavits. The common thread was fear, silence, and now validation. Even other celebrities began inching toward the edge. Usher's old 2022 interview where he said he'd never let his kids live with Diddy resurfaced and went viral again. People were now putting together timelines, realizing how long the industry may have known, realizing that the silence had always been the loudest part. On social media, fans started calling out other artists who had collaborated with Diddy over the years. Some started issuing statements, distancing themselves. Others deactivated comments. The pressure was building because Bieber had broken the unspoken rule: don't speak out, don't name names. Cassie's lawyers later revealed that several artists had already requested to speak with prosecutors off the record. Some had stories, some had recordings. All were scared. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution looked calm, but they weren't done yet, because they were about to introduce something even more damning than texts: a video. As Day 5 reached its final hour, the prosecution asked the judge for permission to present a piece of visual evidence that had just been authenticated. The courtroom hushed. The judge nodded, and the lights dimmed slightly. What played on the screen was security footage from 2018 inside the lobby of a high-end hotel in Los Angeles. Cassie could be seen talking to a male artist. Then Diddy entered the frame. He didn't cause a scene, but he didn't have to. He walked straight over, placed a hand firmly around Cassie's waist, and whispered something in her ear. Her smile vanished. She nodded. He guided her away. It was subtle, chillingly subtle, but it perfectly matched the behavior she had described and the control Bieber said he'd witnessed firsthand. When the lights came back up, Diddy wasn't staring at the judge. He was staring at the floor. As court adjourned for the day, reporters swarmed out of the building. And by nightfall, the damage had spread. Brands began pulling endorsements. Streaming platforms quietly reviewed whether to remove Diddy's past catalog. Behind closed doors, there were talks of dissolving business partnerships, and more people were coming forward. For Justin Bieber, the day didn't end in victory. It ended in exhaustion. A source close to him said he didn't do this to be a hero. He did it because he couldn't stay silent anymore. Bieber had gone through his own hell, and now he'd used his voice to help someone else walk through theirs. For Cassie, it was more than vindication. It was proof that her story mattered. That someone, especially someone the world once idolized, had seen it, believed it, and said something. And for Diddy, it was the beginning of the end. What happens next remains to be seen. But after Day 5, one thing was certain. The silence that protected the powerful for so long had finally been broken, and it might never return. The lasting impact and uncertain future. This courtroom battle is more than a legal fight. It's a reckoning. Bieber's journey, from a vulnerable teen caught in toxic mentorship to a man finding his voice, reflects a wider crisis in the music industry. What comes next for Diddy, Bieber, and those affected remains unknown, but one thing is clear: the silence has been shattered forever. The fallout from Day 5 shook the foundations of a powerful empire, triggering a wave of revelations, confessions, and legal challenges. For years, the industry thrived on secrets and silent complicity, but now the tide is turning. Artists, insiders, and victims are beginning to speak out, challenging long-standing power structures. For Justin Bieber, the day marked a turning point not just in the trial, but in his own life. He moved from being controlled and silenced to using his voice as a tool for justice and healing. But the scars of the past linger, reminding us how dangerous unchecked power can be in entertainment. Meanwhile, Shaun Diddy Combmes faces intense scrutiny and a rapidly crumbling reputation. His courtroom outbursts and the damning evidence have left him isolated and vulnerable, a far cry from the confident mogul he once portrayed. The legal proceedings are ongoing, and the full extent of the consequences remains to be seen. Beyond the headlines, this story has sparked a broader cultural conversation about mentorship, exploitation, and the responsibility of those in power. How will the industry respond? Will this lead to lasting change, or will silence once again reclaim its hold? Only time will tell. But what's undeniable is that Day 5 shattered the illusion that some were untouchable. It awakened a collective awareness, encouraging more voices to rise and more truths to be told. In a world hungry for justice and transparency, this moment stands as a beacon that even the darkest corners can be brought into the light. The powerful might hold the stage, but their secrets rarely stay hidden. Justin Bieber's courage to speak up has ignited a cultural shift, proving that even the most guarded stories can't stay buried. The industry's darkest corners are being illuminated, and the echoes of Day 5 will resonate far beyond the courtroom walls. This trial is more than a legal battle. It's a wake-up call for the entire entertainment world. The silence that once protected the powerful has finally shattered, and with it, the illusion of untouchability. What happens next remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the voices once silenced are now louder than ever. For victims, survivors, and those watching, it's a reminder that change is possible when truth breaks free. The story is far from over, yet the impact of this moment has already begun reshaping expectations, boundaries, and accountability in an industry desperate for reform.